One of the biggest problems with the Mike McCarthy, Aaron Rodgers Packers was they failed to evolve sufficiently. They fell behind what the rest of the league was trying to do. So where does this version of the Green Bay Packers fall in trying to evolve, in playing modern football? How are they built? And how do they approach the game? All of that on today's show.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts. Wherever you find podcasts, you'll find Locked On Packers, the #1 Packers podcast on the internet. And the show for fans who know what happened. They want to know why and how. I hope everyone had a very restful and enjoyable fourth. I hope that you ate all the good food you wanted to eat. I hope that you are not hungover today. I hope that you did not have any issues with fireworks. I hope that you were safe. All of those things as we roll through here and head toward training camp. We don't want you to be on the injured reserve. We don't want that. We don't want you to be on the non-football injury list. It's not what we want around here. I was thinking about this team as I have been over the last few weeks. And it's an interesting time to cover this team because there are a lot of questions about what they're going to look like. What does Joe Barry have left to give? And so I thought, okay, let's look at this team in relation to where the rest of the league is, where the rest of the league is going, and how the Packers match up. So let's start offensively. One of the big trends right now is quarterbacks who can problem solve. And I don't mean mentally, although at the line of scrimmage, you have to be able to diagnose pre-snap. You have to be able to figure out post-snap if safeties are rotating, because this Vic Fangio scheme that is taking over the league, you're getting those rip Liz. You're getting situations where it looks like too high pre-snap. The safety comes down and you better be looking again post-snap, or you're going to throw right into the teeth of the defense, right into a safety rotation, or you're going to think it's you got quarters or you got cover two, and all of a sudden it's man coverage or it's robber or whatever it is. You have to be able to identify all that stuff. But what I mean by problem solve is you have to be able to make plays outside of structure in addition to the things that you can do within the confines of the offense. Patrick Mahomes is the perfect case in point of this. Jalen Hurts did it last year. In fact, killed the Packers doing it. The Packers defended this Eagles passing attack really effectively in the one game that they played. Now, they couldn't stop them on the ground. We're going to talk about that part of this. But Jalen Hurts, as a runner, was huge for them. And it's one of the reasons why Jared Goff, when the play breaks down, not much he can do. If he gets a look that he's not expecting, he's going to struggle. Kirk Cousins, if he gets a look he's not expecting, he's going to go one check down. The playmaker has become the ultimate trump card in all this. And Joe Burrow can do it. He can extend plays. He's always hunting for that big play. We know, I mentioned Mahomes and Hurts. This was Russell Wilson once upon a time. Of course, this was Aaron Rodgers at his peak. This is Josh Allen and what he can do. And I think if you're going to make the compelling case for Justin Fields, and I don't think there is a compelling case, but if you're going to make one, it's that he can do the thing that you can't teach, and that is outside of structure, he is extremely dangerous to run or pass. Lamar Jackson won an MVP with his legs. He was also a highly efficient and proficient passer. Jordan Love gives the Packers that element. In fact, one of the reasons he was drafted was because he can extend plays, make throws on the run. Although, interestingly, we haven't quite seen the zip that I saw in college at Utah. Being able to make these high-level throws on the run. You see it on tape at Utah State. He's rolling to his left and he fires a ball 30 yards down a line down the field. Or against LSU, rolling to his right, he feathers in over a defender to a running back down the seam. It is an incredible throw. It's the throw, I've been saying this since 2020. It is the throw that birthed the Mahomes comparisons. He can do that. And we've seen in little bits and pieces his ability to make plays with his feet in preseason, taking off, being decisive and saying, okay, I'm in trouble. I'm just taking off. I'm just going. So in terms of that trend, I think the Packers, they're not sitting there in a game where everyone's got this dual threat quarterback. They're not sitting back there with a statue. And even guys like Joe Burrow, like he's not Lamar Jackson by any means, but he can move enough. He manipulates the pocket well. He escapes the pocket and can make throws on the run well. I think the best version of it right now that we have, of course, Mahomes is the ultimate playmaker, but Josh Allen, in terms of being able to make plays with his feet and beat you from the pocket, make any throw in the NFL, I think right now he's the most gifted, physically gifted quarterback that we have. Herbert is right in the mix in terms of arm talent. Patrick Mahomes is the best playmaker, but in terms of pure physical talent, that's Josh Allen. I think those are the guys that the NFL is going toward, and the Packers, they at least tried to find it in Jordan Love. Then you have the way that teams are playing defense. You have the too high world that everyone's living in. No big plays. So from time immemorial, the way to attack too high is you run the ball. And it should be relatively easy to run the ball, right? If a defense is playing too high nickel, all right, you've got 4 guys not in the box who are corners for sure. You're probably adding that nickel corner. Now we've got 5. That means in and around the ball, 5 offensive linemen and a tight end for the offense. You've got 6 at most for the defense. You should have 6 to account for 6. You should be able to run the ball. Now the Packers in 2021, one of the problems that they were having is teams were playing these too high looks and they could not run the ball. Last year, they were able to run the ball. Teams sat in too high. Now, it got to the point where, okay, this passing game sucks. So teams started to say, we got to bring that safety down. But guess what? You have Christian Watson out there. Christian Watson breaks out in week 10. And you look at the coverage numbers for defenses against the Packers. Christian Watson changed everything. They had to go back to more of those too high looks because they had to protect against a big play. What do the Packers do in the draft? 2 important things. They add speed from the slot. Jaden Reed, a vertical ball winner from the slot with 4.4 speed. The Packers claim 4.39, but like, okay, laser timed at 4.44, I think. Either way, he can get vertical. Luke Musgrave, Tucker Kraft, highly athletic tight ends. In these too high worlds, you have to have matchup guys who can win in the middle of the field because that's where the openings are. And you have to have a quarterback willing to throw to the middle of the field, something Aaron Rodgers has not been willing to do since like 2014. Luke Musgrave, matchup, ball winner, speed. Tucker Kraft, run after catch, speed. Jaden Reed, speed, middle of the field. All these guys. If you get quarters, you have to make those safeties communicate and cover in space, especially carry vertical. You get cover 2, seam, middle of the field. That was where you had Brian Urlacher, who was just the best, playing that Tampa 2, that middle linebacker dropping out to try and take away the middle of the field. Well, most guys can't do that like Brian Urlacher. It's why he was special. And so when you have these tight ends, look at the best offenses in the league. The Chiefs have Travis Kelce. The Eagles have Dallas Goedert. They have A.J. Brown, who is a killer in the middle of the field. The 49ers have Travis Kittle. They have George Kittle. Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk are excellent in the middle of the field on slants. You have to, in addition, be able to threaten the middle of the field. You have to be able to make plays after the catch. So you remember what Christian Watson did against the Eagles. He catches that drift post off play action, and he is off. That's the thing that Deebo Samuel can do. He catches a 6-8 yard play. He can make a guy miss and be gone. You have to be able to have a couple guys who can do that. You hope Luke Musgrave, you get him open in the middle of the field, He's 6'6", 250. You don't want, if you're a safety, you don't want to bring him down. And if you're a linebacker, you can't run with him. And so we don't know if Luke Musgrave can play, right? We don't know if Jaden Reed can play. We don't know if Christian Watson can carry a passing game. We don't know if Jordan Love on 3rd and 8 can read out a defense, make accurate throws into tight windows of coverage. We don't know if Matt LaFleur, without Aaron Rodgers, can call plays and stack plays and put together game plans that can consistently beat defenses. Now, we have some hints, of course. There's good evidence about Matt LaFleur. I think there's good evidence on Christian Watson. But we know the skill set, essentially, of Jordan Love. We know he has the athleticism to make plays with his legs. We know that playmaking is in his DNA. In fact, when he was asked in his opening press conference with Packers reporters what the Packers are getting in Jordan Love, the first thing he said was a playmaker. And that is what I think over time he's been able to show, because he's not worried about making an accurate throw. He's not worried about the mechanics. He's not worried about, okay, how many steps is it again when I have that under center play action? What's the footwork on this? He's not thinking about it. He's just going out and making plays, and he's doing things like showing off the arm talent, just going out and playing. I'm reading out the coverage. I know what the Eagles are doing. I've got this whole shot to Aaron Jones. High level throw. I know that I've got Christian Watson on the strike, anticipatory. You throw it behind the linebacker and you get him off to the races on time and on rhythm. We don't know if the guys that they have drafted and the guys that they have hired in the case of Matt LaFleur can execute the vision the way that it is being envisioned. But I think when you look at the vision itself, if we're just going to judge that part of this, they are running as modern a version of offense as we see. It is a variation on the scheme, and I think the Packers have done interesting things to push it forward in ways that other teams are not. And they have built a team that fits the scheme. You go back in some of those late-stage Mike McCarthy teams, which were required route runner, ball winner types, guys who could go out and just win their matchups. When you're throwing to like 2016 Richard Rodgers and 2017 Jordy Nelson, and 2017, 2018 Geronimo Allison, it just doesn't have the same pop as when it's Greg Jennings, Donald Driver, Jermichael Finley, Jordy Nelson in his prime, Randall Cobb in his prime, James Jones in his prime. It's not the same. They just said, okay, Aaron Rodgers, go do it. This team is built to play the modern offense. It's built to play the Matt LaFleur offense. But whether or not the Matt LaFleur offense is an offense worth keeping, we're going to see. The rest of the league sure thinks at least a version of this offense is. Whether Jordan Love can do it at a high level, we're going to see. But I think when you look at the approach, when you look at the process, they're approaching this the right way. The execution is going to be everything. I want to talk about the defense and their approach, because that is the far more maligned unit here. We're going to do that in just a second. Take your first swing at betting Major League Baseball on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets up to $200. That's right, just $20, and you can get $200 back in bonus bets, win or lose. That's $200 you can spend on everything from the money line to over-unders to who you think is going to hit the first home run, all on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you can get paid instantly. I like to pair a couple of these together. Home run, couple home run bets together. I'm usually getting plus odds, like 12 to 1, 14 to 1, 15 to 1. Better. The more, you put three together, now you got something. Now you've really upped the ante. There's no better place to bet on Major League Baseball than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get that $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. And thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. Everydayers this week on the show. We still have more content to get to. We're not done. We're not done. How dare you? We don't do that around here. We're going to have more shows coming up this week and the rest of the month. Rodgers signature series, more rookie orientation series. We've got a number of players in line here. Jaden Reed, Luke Musgrave, Colby Wooden. I think I'm going to get Zach Blackerby from Locked On Auburn to come in and talk about Wooden because he's really excited about him. So a lot to come here in the month of July as we get ready to open training camp this month. So defensively, of course, is going to be where I think you have more questions about the viability of not the plan, but the approach. So in the modern NFL, everyone's playing too high, as I mentioned. Okay, if you're going to do that, if you're going to live in this world where you're playing a lot of zone coverage, and that's what most of these teams are doing. You're not just living in two-man. This is not Todd Bowles in 2020. Although the Packers had plenty of problems against two-man, and I think I would love to see them do that a little bit more. Your safeties have to be able to communicate, which is why I understand going, okay, continuity here is a benefit to the defense. They got worse last year at safety with the same guys. So continuity did not save them. But you have Darnell Savage, you bring in Rudy Ford. You know, the other pieces that you bring in are sort of fringes. They're on the edges of the roster. I don't know how much Tarvarius Moore is gonna really impact this team. I think you're gonna live and die by what you get from Darnell Savage and Rudy Ford. But they can run. You have to be able to prevent the big play. And in order to do that, you have to be able to get to sidelines. You have to be able to carry guys deep. And the Packers have the ability to do that. Now, you also would like to be able to come up and fit the run. This is the problem. They don't have that. These guys have just not shown a consistency doing that. Now, that's a personnel problem, not an approach problem, because every defense in the league is looking for safeties that have the speed to cover, the instincts to cover, and the ability to come up and fit the run. There just aren't that many guys that can do it. There aren't that many impact safeties in the league. You look at this division, Harrison Smith and Eddie Jackson. Eddie Jackson had a little bit of a resurgent year last year, but he had been a number of years just sort of wandering in the wilderness. An awesome player with Vic Fangio and Adrian Amos next to him. And then it's just sort of like, oh, well. Harrison Smith, I think, has shown some signs of decline. Still a really good player, but not the same when you don't have a running mate. The secondary is a weak-link system. You are only as good as your worst player. Now, the good news for the Packers is they were still a top 10 defense defending the pass last year with all of the problems at safety. So you're hoping that, okay, Darnell Savage plays a little bit closer to where he's been over the course of his career, which is a higher level than he's been. And that another year in the system for Rudy Ford, and you're getting an opportunity to get a better player. We'll see. I have been on the record over and over and over. I do not like this approach. Okay. You do need corners who, especially on third down and in the red zone, have the ability to play man coverage. You saw it against the Chiefs. They didn't have big name guys. That defense was not, the Legion of Boom. They're playing a lot of rookies, but they could cover in man coverage, and that allowed Steve Spagnuolo to come in with your blitzing, aggressive defense, Jordan Love knows all too well, and cover on the back end while also being able to disguise and do all that stuff. You have to be able to do this no matter what kind of defense you play, because even in situations where you're going to be a heavy, let's say, cover 3 team, there are going to be certain situations where you're just going to have to play man coverage. So, because you don't have Richard Sherman, you don't have Earl Thomas, you don't have Bobby Wagner, you don't have KJ Wright, you don't have Michael Bennett, you don't have Cliff Averill. I think a lot of teams got tricked into this idea that, a lot of people wanted the Packers to move to this cover 3 Seattle defense, and a lot of teams got tricked. Oh, it's the scheme. No, it's not the scheme. It's not the scheme. It's Richard Sherman. It's Earl Thomas. It's Bobby Wagner. It's Cam Chancellor. It's a front that can get pressure without blitzing. If you can get pressure without blitzing, you can stop the run from any personnel and you can cover from any personnel, you win. And that is the thing from an approach standpoint that I understood the Quay Walker pick because it was an attempt to play modern defense. An attempt to say, and they have been outright about this. I'm not reading tea leaves. I'm not projecting. They have said it. Matt LaFleur said it. Brian Gutekunst said it. Joe Barry said it. Everyone has said it. Quay Walker was selected so that they could stay in 2 linebacker fronts more often. Now, whether that is, base, I doubt it. Whether that is, what we would think of as true nickel with 2 defensive linemen and 2 edge guys plus your 2 linebackers. I think that's where they would like to play 85% of snaps. And then maybe on 3rd and 12, 3rd and 14, you played some dime. Interestingly, by the way, in spring ball, the guy getting those dime reps was Quay Walker. Is that a sign of things to come? Are they trying to keep Devondre Campbell's legs a little bit fresh in the spring, or are they trying to keep his legs fresh during the season? Interesting one. I think Quay Walker has the physical tools to do that. But the irony of that pick all along for me was, if what your desired outcome for Quay Walker is to help you with your run defense because you can stay big with a linebacker, fitting the run was the biggest problem Quay Walker had, and that was playing behind Jalen Carter and Devontae Wyatt and Trayvon Walker and like the best group of defensive line talent maybe we've ever seen assembled. And it still was not quite there, and you still had another linebacker taking snaps from him because he was better at it. I'm dubious of the evaluation there. I get the idea. And I think the idea is a good one. If you can get a linebacker who can cover in space, who can cover tight ends, and we did see the flashes of that. His coverage ability was better in zone than we realized, or at least than I realized. In man coverage, like he had that play where he ran with Saquon Barkley up the rail and looked effortless doing it. Played much better in the second half of the year. I think it seemed like the light turned on a little bit for him in terms of the way the game was moving. Certainly not from emotional standpoint, because still couldn't quite keep those emotions in check. Those personal foul penalties, can't have them, has to end. I understood the approach. I understand the approach. Devontae Wyatt as a disruptor. What you need is to be able to create negatives. You're not going to stop teams in this world where you're going to say no big plays. You have to give something up. And so if you're going to say no big plays, we're going to play a bunch of nickel, you're going to dare teams to run. So what you need to be able to do is give yourself the best opportunity to stop the run, having guys who can run as linebackers, who can get off blocks would be nice. Having defensive linemen who can either eat up blocks and or, very few guys can do both, and or penetrate to create negative plays. And the Packers made their intentions clear. Jerry Montgomery said it on the record before the draft. They want to get a penetrating 3 technique. It's Devontae Wyatt. And based on my understanding of what's going on here, we're going to see Kenny Clark more at the 5. He's going to be bumped out a little bit more. We're going to see TJ Slayton in the nose. And we're going to see Devontae Wyatt as the 3 technique. And I think we're going to see a decent amount of those 3 guys on the field together trying to create some advantages in the run game, especially on early downs. And this is the thing. In a world where everyone wants to play action you to death, your linebackers have to be good enough against the run to handle it and athletic enough that when they get fooled, and they're going to get fooled, they can still get back underneath into space to disrupt whatever middle of the field target the other team is trying to use, because that is where most of the play action concepts right now are trying to attack. You get those linebackers to push up, and now you're going to throw it in behind them. You have to have the speed to, if you make a mistake. And this was something Devondre Campbell did really well in 2021. And I actually really liked Joe Barry made a little bit of an adjustment where, or maybe Devondre Campbell just started doing it, but this is something that you see defensive coordinators do, is if you get fooled on a play action, you have a cutoff point. Okay, if you took more than 3 steps when you realize it's a pass, and I'm just making that number up, but this is how you can teach it, is okay, you hit a break point. You take more than 3 or 4 steps forward. You just go then. You're just going to get the quarterback, and it becomes a blitz. And you try and get a disruption that way, knowing that I can't get back into my field, wherever I'm supposed to be. So let me just try and use my speed and athleticism, and in his case, his incredibly long arms and explosiveness, to go make a play. I think that in a lot of ways, the Joe Barry approach, which is the no big play approach, try and live in nickel, makes some sense. As Ben Solak wrote so well for The Ringer early in the season, one of the problems was they didn't really do anything else. They didn't mix in the games. They didn't mix in the pre-snap. They didn't effectively pre-snap disguise. And what they ended up doing at the end of the year was they simplified things a little bit, but they started to play a little bit more aggressive on the outside. They started to press a little bit more. They started to let Russell Douglas and Jay Alexander squat a little bit more, play that cover 2 squat corner. It's okay. You want to try and throw quick on us? You want to try and throw receiver screens on us? We've got 2 of the best tackling corners in the league. All of that was smart. Now let's see if it carries over. All right, we're going to finish up here in just a second. Before we do, thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. Everydayers would love for you to go check out The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. I have a piece out today. We're doing our roster series, looking at the guys right now on the fringes of the roster, but the most important 90 players, essentially things you need to know. Who's going to make it, who's going to probably not make it. That's where we are right now, but we're going to go through all of it. That is at The Leap. And then Locked On Sports Today we're having a lot of fun right now with Locked On Sports Today. We've done some theme shows this week. Baseball is today. We're going to get you caught up on what's going on in baseball. We had the NFL yesterday. We had the NBA and the free agency 2 days ago, which that show is still pretty up to date, by the way. Nothing big has really happened since then, except some of the reporting around Dame Lillard. But we knew the Dame Lillard stuff when we recorded that show, so not a big problem. It is all the biggest stories in sports in under 20 minutes. Locked On Sports Today. Go check it out wherever you get podcasts. The last thing here is, I was thinking about this, and I didn't want to do a whole thing on it, but at the end of the show, I felt like it was appropriate. If you're still listening, like, you're in for a penny and for a pound, right? The Damian Lillard stuff evinced the Aaron Rodgers stuff for me. And Heat fans, of course, are going nuts about it. Oh, well, they've got to trade him. And the answer is no, they don't. And I'm bringing this up because in the NFL, teams have taken a little bit more hardline approach over the years on this. And in the case of the Packers, like, maybe they should have traded Aaron Rodgers. Our pal Wendell Ferreira has been on this. Like, maybe they should have traded Aaron Rodgers after 2020. When he demanded the trade in 2021, maybe they should have just said, okay. Now, I'm sure the reason they didn't is they had the Devontae Adams negotiations coming up. And so you trade Aaron Rodgers, and now you expect him to play with Jordan Love, and now you risk losing Devontae Adams. Well, guess what? They ended up losing them both anyway. And this idea that you have to do favors for agents, and you have to send the guy where they want to go, or you're going to have an agent problem. When has an agent ever done a team a favor? They can't. They have a fiduciary responsibility to their client. And so what we have to do is end this charade that teams have to play nice with agents, because agents don't have to play nice with teams. They don't. Get your money. It is an agent's job to get the money. I think some of the stuff that's been out there, they're like, oh, this report that teams are watching the Blazers to see how they handle this. Why? If Portland offers you the most money in free agency next year, you're going to sign there. Like, Zadarius Smith and Preston Smith both said on the record the reason they came to Green Bay was Green Bay offered them the most money. We overrate fit in a lot of these cases. It is almost always about the money. It's usually guys at the ends of their career that make decisions about winning. Like, Allen Robinson could have played with Aaron Rodgers or Mitch Trubisky. He chose Mitch Trubisky because the Bears offered a little more money. A little more money. That is what this is always going to be about. Teams do not have to bow to the whims of their superstar players. And I think every Packer fan in about January, first week of January, is going, I'm so glad the Packers didn't kowtow to Aaron Rodgers and trade him, because this team's going to win the Super Bowl. Now, they didn't, of course, but it's not because of, the trade or non-trade. Aaron Rodgers was the MVP again. They got another incredible season, all-pro season from Devontae Adams, and they got some bad luck at the worst possible time I still will always believe they were the best team that year. Their special teams were there and doing, and they played their worst game at the worst time. Their second worst game, week 1, not included. So the reason I bring this up is I think the Packers played this right. And you also look at this Aaron Rodgers situation. They got a real trade package from the Jets for a 39, going to be 40-year-old quarterback. Dame is not that old, but 39, going to be 40-year-old quarterback. Like what would the Bucs have given up to trade for Tom Brady? And that's Tom Brady. They won a Super Bowl. What would they have given up? If Matthew Stafford were 38, would that have been the same trade? The Packers are probably going to get a first and a second out of this, plus the pick swap. That's nice. That's a nice return on a 39-year-old quarterback who did not want to be there anymore. And let's be honest, you did not want there anymore. You had Jets fans acting like this was going to be for nothing. And that's what if you're the Heat fan going, well, just trade. We'll give you Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson and a Cuban sandwich, and that's it. And you got to take it because you just got to take it because the player wants to go there. No, I don't. He's under contract. I think Aaron Rodgers' contract situation was particularly unique, but you look at a team like the 76ers, they held firm on Ben Simmons and they got James Harden out of it. Now James Harden wants to leave again, but that was their fault picking James Harden. They could have had Tyrese Halliburton. We need to dispense with this idea that the teams have to do these players favors. No, they don't, because the players are not doing the teams any favors. Their agents are not doing the teams any favors. So let's just stop this. Enough. It's silly. All right, back tomorrow. Much more this week on Locked On Packers. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Just for fun, I'm on Blue Sky. Peter Bukowski at Peter Bukowski. I'm also on Mastodon. I'm also on Spoutable. Those are the same, Peter_Bukowski. Sorry, I couldn't use the underscore on Blue Sky. We'll see what happens with Twitter. So I don't know. And anytime you want to come hang out with us live, you can do that on our Locked On Packers YouTube page, so you can stay Locked On Packers.